Welcome back to Diet Rebellion. Today I'm joined by Brittany Corey, a registered dietitian that focuses on intuitive eating and disordered and binge eating due to a binge eating pattern that she had for 6 years that ruined her own relationship. We're going to hear about that, and also sent her on a path to helping other women avoid the mistakes that she made. In today's episode, we talk about very applicable tips that almost anybody across the board can apply today. We talk about her own story and so much more. In today's episode, you are going to want to listen if you struggle with stress eating, emotional eating, binge eating, and anything similar to the above. I hope you enjoy. Now let's get into it. Welcome to Diet Rebellion, the podcast that's here to help you break free from the chains of dieting and finally take control of your health, strength, and confidence. I'm Joe Hoye, your host and the founder of Diet Detox. After transforming the lives of thousands of women over 40 who have been trapped in the endless diet cycle, I'm here to show you a new way. One that focuses on eating for your body's needs, restoring your metabolism, and rebuilding your strength for life. Get ready for real, no bullshit conversations, expert insights, and actionable strategies that empower you to live diet-free and thrive. It's time to stop restricting and start rebuilding. Join the rebellion. Your journey starts now. Brittany Corey, welcome to Diet Rebellion. I'm super excited to have you on today because the thing that you are number one at, like absolute queen at, is something that we've been uncovering a lot inside the podcast and kind of inside our coaching. And I think today you're just going to be super valuable to a large portion of our audience. So welcome on.
Thanks, Joe. I'm really glad to be here chatting with you today.
You got it. And so from my perspective, binge eating, disordered eating, emotional eating, stress eating, all these things are so common for so many people. And I think that some people give themselves the label that, well, I am an emotional eater or a stress eater or a binge eater. And they just think that that's a piece of them. But I disagree because I think that you've had your own history of this and I don't think you do anymore. So that can't be the case. Can you just tell me a little bit about yourself and if that's true or not?
Yeah. So many places that I could get into here, but first starting off with a little more about me. Growing up, never really had a good relationship with food in my body, although at the time I never necessarily labeled it as such. I never would have considered that, oh, I had disordered eating or I had poor body image. But if now I look back on all of that, I recognize that, yeah, that was definitely part of my story growing up. And when I went away to university, that was when all of those things kind of came to a head. It's like the seeds were planted, and then I was on my own. I had free reign with food for the first time. I could do whatever I wanted, and that really turned into binge eating, that turned into gaining weight, and that evolved into, oh my God, I hate my body. I hate the way that I look. I need to change something. And on one hand, I developed this passion for fitness. I got really into going to the gym. I became really interested in nutrition and healthy eating, which, I think set me up in part in a really good way, but also it got taken way too far. It became very meticulous with calorie tracking, everything needing to be recorded to a T, trying to hit my macros all the time, not really allowing myself any room to actually be a human. And so it turned into binging and purging, and highlight on the binging really, really quickly. So that went on for 6 years. And during that time, that's when I decided that I wanted to be a dietitian. Again, I was really passionate about fitness and health. And it's so interesting the way that your brain kind of, with eating disorders, really almost gaslights you into being like, oh, there's no problem. This is fine. I can stop anytime. There's no issue here, which is really my experience with it. And yeah, I mean, that went on for 6 years until it all came to a head where I realized that my whole life was just revolving around food. It really did feel like part of my identity. It really did feel like part of who I was as a person, that, I'm just going to be dealing with these issues for forever, that this is something that I'm always going to be challenged by. And again, I was kind of smacked in the face with like, okay, this is really ruining my life. And that happened because I broke up with my boyfriend, who's now my husband, but he didn't leave me alone. He was like, I know something's wrong with you. You have to tell me what's happening. We had been together for 3 years at this time. So like in the 6 years of my eating disorder, he was with me for 3. And when I came clean to him, all again smacked me in the face that I was like, oh my God, this is so not worth it. All these things that I'm trying to do to have the perfect body to, be this like fit, healthy person. There are good parts of that, absolutely, but there are also the obsessive, compulsive, perfectionist, all or nothing parts of it that are just not worth it. And so I think for me, it was almost stepping back and realizing like what parts of this are actually me, like what parts are genuinely part of my values and what feels good for me, and what parts are taking away from my values and taking away from these other things in life that are really beautiful. And so obviously we like got back together and now we're married. But yeah, I think so often people who struggle with binge eating, disordered eating, any kind of eating disorder, any kind of body image issue, we do turn it into this is part of who I am and this is something that I inherently struggle with, which I really don't think is true. I think that, again, there are parts of it that are values based. Like, I want to be healthy. I want to be fit. I want to be capable in my body. I want to be strong. I want to, take care of myself. I want to age well and I want to be in good physical form when I'm, 75 years old. I want to be doing these things that I love. But then there are these other parts that kind of latch on and maybe influence us from the media and diet culture. And if you already kind of gear towards being a bit of a type A perfectionistic type person, it all gets really messed up in that it becomes, maybe it starts as something that's values based, but it becomes something that's really not. And so I think de-identifying with the fact that like I am a binge eater or I am an emotional eater or I just have bad body image, and recognizing that there are parts of that that are really, you, and there are parts of that that do connect to your values, but labeling yourself as such, I think, kind of creates this almost limiting belief that you can't really break away from some of those patterns that you're in, which is totally not true.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. So, what I've seen a lot is that people will latch on to fitness and nutrition, which generally is an amazing thing. But sometimes, in a lot of times, we'll see it in like coaches. So I have my own experience with this, but sometimes it gets taken too far. Like doing the healthy things gets taken too far, and then we tip the scales again, and now we're in that unhealthy range. And so for you, it was binging and purging. For me, it was like almost like orthorexic disordered eating of like, no, I can't have these things because then I'm not healthy, or then I'm not a coach, or then I'm not leading with the right example. And then like one day I opened my eyes and I was like, holy shit, like this isn't good either. It's putting stress on me. I'm not fun to be around. Like I'm not even being a human. So yeah, there's a fine line to walk sometimes between like, yes, I'm healthy and yes, I'm too healthy. And I put too healthy in quotes. I'm curious, what would you tell your past self, right? And during that 6 year period, knowing what you know now, what would you tell her to release that and grow faster?
That's such a good question. And I think for me, so much of it revolved around acceptance and wanting to be accepted by other people, wanting to be seen in a very particular way, wanting to be regarded in a certain light. And while there's nothing wrong with wanting to, put your best foot forward, again, it's that fine line where, okay, now we're going too far with this. And maybe we're also creating some cognitive distortions in how you believe people perceive you versus how people actually perceive you.
Really like
And
that
so,
phrase. That's super good.
yeah,
Cognitive distortions. Basically,
yeah,
like the perspective that you're looking at things through versus maybe what's actually reality.
totally,
That's
totally.
good.
And so I think, yeah, just what I would say to myself is that you are loved and you are accepted, and the people who you think you want to love and accept you aren't actually your people, and that's okay. And changing your body is not going to change anything meaningful in your life in the ways that you want it to. And you can pursue fitness and you can pursue health, but you don't need to do it in this way. I think
Yeah,
that's what I would give her a hug.
I
I would
love
give
it.
her a hug and just let her know that she's loved and she's okay. And yeah,
That's where my mind goes to is acceptance, right? Because I think for so many people, they just want to be accepted and they think, I don't know where it came from you, and maybe we'll get into that. I'd love to know. But I think for so many people, they think, well, I need to be smaller for people to accept me. I need to be XYZ for people to accept me. It's like, no, no, nobody really gives a shit. You just got to be you. And again, like those cognitive distortions are huge. I'm curious, what do you think the signs are? Like if you're working with a client or you're just having a conversation with somebody, what are some of the signs that like really jump out at you and scream at you where you're like, hey, maybe we need to relax on whatever your health goal is, weight loss, muscle gain, just getting smaller, you name it, and instead focus our efforts on addressing this issue, right? Like,
Mm.
is there anything across the board where you're like, hey, we got to pause?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I would probably say the first thing that comes to mind is if there is any major guilt or shame coming up, if the plan is not followed or if certain foods are eaten, if there is a feeling within you that, oh my God, I've done something wrong, we're turning it into a moral conundrum here when in reality you're just eating food and you're making a decision. And the reason why that guilt and that shame I think is so important to intervene at is because those are some of the beginning indicators of developing an issue with secret eating, binge eating, emotional eating that we need to address right from the get-go if those other things aren't happening already. If those things are already happening, then absolutely we need to, have an intervention point and say, okay, we need to like take a step back from maybe focusing on weight loss so much and just focus on neutralizing food, having a better relationship with it, and just getting back to listening to your body and learning how to do those things before maybe we start dappling into, okay, let's like set some goals and figure out how we can take a step forward with that because yeah, like that guilt and that shame, what that says is you are not just thinking that okay, this food is fuel and this is something that I'm meant to enjoy, that this is good or bad, and therefore I am good or bad for eating these things or for participating in these behaviors or for going off plan or what have you. And you're human. Like you can't be expected to follow the plan to a T all the time. There's going to be situations where you have to adapt and you have to kind of be a little bit flexible. And of course, we want to be able to go about that within reason and not have things go overboard and not have it be such a big stray from maybe what is your regular baseline. But it's almost like we can't do those things and remain neutral in those situations until you have a better relationship with food. And so I think addressing some of those feelings that you have about food and about yourself when you eat certain foods or when you don't work out or whatever are really important to intervene at if that is coming up in any way.
Yeah, they're huge, but they're not attractive, right? Like, I feel like you and I probably struggle with the same thing in terms of helping people is what we do isn't really that attractive, right? Like we're not quick fixes, we're not diets, we're not cleanses that's going to make this physical noticeable result instantly. We shift things from the inside and then watch how that affects the outside of people.
Mhm.
But I have a feeling I'm right here. I'm going to find out in a second. I'm curious when you start to do that with somebody, when you take away any calorie goals, any movement goals, anything like that, and you start to look inside of them and shift who they are as a person, maybe their thoughts, their actions, their behaviors. Does weight loss just kind of come naturally from doing that?
That's a good question, and I think that's something that a lot of people hope for is that okay, if I stop binge eating, if I have a better relationship with food, if I'm not emotional eating so much, if I'm listening to my body, then I'm just going to lose weight. And absolutely, for some people, that is the case. But I think it can get really messy if we're expecting that so
Sure.
heavily because anytime we are focusing on weight loss, to an extent, we do have to kind of focus a little bit on measures for what to do, when to do it, how much to do it that are outside of your body. In the beginning, we can't be focusing on those external pieces because you are already so disconnected from your body, and we need to build that relationship back first. And that means not focusing on calorie goals or macro goals or numbers on the scale or anything of that nature. And that's really hard to wrap your head around when you have been focusing on weight loss for so long. And so it's also reasonable if you're like, oh, well, maybe if I do these things, then I will lose weight. And again, you might. And I wish I could look into my crystal ball and tell each and every one of my clients that, like, hey, when you start doing this, here's exactly what's going to happen. But I can't. And that's just not reality. And I think such an important part of this work is letting go of some of those expectations and learning to trust yourself again with food, with exercise, and find what actually feels good for you. And if that does not lead to weight loss, hey, maybe we've done such a great job of working on acceptance that you're actually like, hey, well, I'm, exercising regularly. I'm eating in a way that feels good. I'm sleeping well. I'm managing my stress. I'm drinking my water. I'm doing all these things. My body hasn't really changed, but I feel really good. And so I'm actually okay with that. And I have moments where maybe I'm not as okay with that, but I really like how I feel now compared to when I was always focusing on my weight. And so I actually just want to like stay par for the course and keep doing what I'm doing. Other people get to a better landing ground with food and their body and exercise, and they're like, yeah, I do still want to lose weight, perhaps for practical reasons of like my stomach gets in the way, or I can't find clothes that fit, or hey, I want to, go on rides at Disney World and I don't fit in some of them. And that is completely valid, and I never want to say like you can't do that or that's wrong. And I think that's kind of where sometimes people in the intuitive eating space get really sticky about that, you can't do that and that's wrong. And I don't think that that's fair to tell anybody what they can or cannot do with their body. At the end of the day, like my job is not to tell you what to do or what not to do. My job is to help you reflect on your behaviors and how certain behaviors impact you, and guide you towards more sustainable behaviors. But my job is not to tell you what to do and what not to do. Is it intuitive eating inherently if you are focusing on weight loss? Like, no, not to what the book would say, but I think that there are still really important aspects of intuitive eating that we never want to lose if you are wanting to take steps towards weight loss. I'll probably never have you track your calories. Like, that's probably not something that I would recommend. If that's something
Mhm.
that you want to do, then again, my job is just help you reflect on like how does that impact your mindset and how you feel about yourself and how you feel about food and your eating behaviors. Are you rebounding from that? Are you feeling that guilt or shame if you like go over or don't hit a certain target or whatever? But yeah, I mean, I think weight loss can be an outcome unintentionally. I think it can be an outcome sometimes intentionally, but certainly not in the beginning. We just actually want to shift focus away from weight loss and towards healing because you've been focusing on weight loss for so long, right? If you've been focusing on it for so long and it's just not sticking, or you're just gaining weight, you're rebounding, you're binging, we need to just we need to stop focusing on it, which will feel really scary, but it's not helping you at this point.
Hey, it's your host, Joe Hoye. Quick break from the show because I want to share something I think you're going to love. If you've been feeling stuck with your weight loss and want a clear, personalized path forward, I made something exactly for that. It's my free Fix Your Fat Loss quiz. This quick quiz is going to help you pinpoint exactly what state your body is in right now. But even better, it reveals the most effective next steps for your unique situation. No more guesswork and no more one-size-fits-all advice. It's time to start losing weight in a way that finally feels doable. So head over to quiz.hoyfit.com or click the very first link inside the show notes to take your free Fix Your Fat Loss quiz today and get going with real, lasting results instantly. Now, let's get back to the show. Yeah, I love it. And weight loss is only like part of the equation, even for people that want to lose weight, right?
Yeah.
Because if we think about it, they don't just want to lose weight to lose weight. They want to lose weight to feel better, to like how they look more, to have more energy, to be more functional, to be more healthy, right? And so there's so many more things that people can gain from this. And I'm curious if it's not weight loss, and I totally love what you just said, if it's not weight loss that everyone's going to see across the board, is there anything that we can say people generally see across the board? And it's probably something internal, happiness, confidence, peace, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, the first one that comes to mind, I know something that is talked about more commonly now on social media just because of the rise of GLP-1 medications is food noise and the reduction in food noise from those medications. But honestly, that is something that I see across the board with all of my clients is a reduction in food noise. In thinking about food, they're not doing it as much. They're not obsessing over what to eat and when to eat and what they're going to eat next and daydreaming about dinner or daydreaming about their breakfast the next day, when they've finished their eating for the day. Like, just a reduction in not only their thoughts, but also the stress around it and the anxiety and the overthinking. That is across the board something that, yeah, like you don't see maybe outwardly by looking at somebody, but it really does change how somebody feels about themselves. And I honestly do you think that you can kind of see it from the outside too, because when someone's thinking about food all the time, like they're so in their head, they're not present, they're not like in the moment, they're not fully there. And when you don't think about food as much, you are able to be more present and fully there and just participate and be more yourself and be more outgoing and be more confident, right? You're not second guessing yourself all the time, or like you're not in the future, you're not in the past, you're just here, which I
I
think
was
is a really big.
Yeah, I was just going to say that is what you're giving them is presence in the moment. Like literally the ability to be where their feet are. And yes, that's going to be good for them, but like it's going to be amazing for everyone around them too. They're going to
Mhm.
get their friend, their sibling, their family member back and get to spend time with them rather than know they're just stuck in their head thinking about whatever it may be. I'm curious because I know you have a group program. I believe you work with people in other aspects as well, but can you, before we get into your group program, because I do want to know how you do that, can you just tell me one of the craziest stories that comes to your mind, like the craziest transformations that you've helped somebody to create in their life?
Yeah, I have so many that come to mind, but I think the first one is maybe most recently I was working with the client and she came to me just feeling at her wit's end
Mhm.
with dieting and focusing on weight loss. When she came to me, she was like totally burnt out from going to the gym all the time. She was at the point where when she first started doing it, she loved it, but now she hated it. She was binging, emotional eating quite a bit. She had experienced quite a bit of loss in her life more recently and was really using food as a way to cope and deal with that, but also then the additional stress from, work and life and everything that comes with it. And so food was really a source of contention for her constantly. It was like every day that battle, she would wake up and just think like, okay, like what am I going to eat today? And what's the plan? And how am I going to stay on track? And how can I avoid trigger situations? And how can I avoid this food and that food? But she also worked in a bakery. And so that was really hard because, of course, she was literally around baked goods all the
It's a
time.
tough
And
spot
like,
to be.
yeah, oh, these ones don't like look perfect. And so staff, you guys can have, the leftovers. And so that was really, really tough for her. And I remember, when we started off, one of the first things that I kind of look at with my new clients in terms of their eating behaviors is, are we going really long gaps in the day without food? And is your body
Mhm.
getting enough nourishment? Even if you're binge eating and you feel like you're eating so much at one point in time, are there gaps during the day that you're restricting and you're not getting enough fuel that your body is then looking for the binge later? And so one of the things was that, she would like go to work and she wouldn't eat breakfast. And, I'm not like a live and die by breakfast person forever and ever, but I do think that when we're trying to achieve more regulation with food, we need to put that in there. And then later down the line, when your body is more regulated and you're not binging and your body's giving you those proper hunger and fullness signals, then we can decide if you're actually not a breakfast person. But for now, like we got to get that in. But the idea of doing that was really, really scary for her. And so she kind of had to like think about it for a while and then she added a lunch instead because she also like wasn't eating that lunch. And so it was kind of like a slow progression. And then I remember one time she came to our session, she's like, Brittany, I had a hard-boiled egg this morning. I was like, hell yeah, that's amazing. And obviously, like a hard-boiled egg is not necessarily enough for breakfast, but it was such a meaningful
It's a
step for
start.
her that like she was showing up for herself. She took the time to prep it ahead of time. She took the time to eat it in the morning. And it also just gave her that confidence that, okay, I can make these changes and I'm not gonna like totally fly off the handle and lose all control. It was a sign of building trust with herself again. And it kind of, again, like that trust with herself really grew from there. And she realized that, hey, I do like having something in the morning. I feel better throughout the day. I have more energy. I'm not, searching for little snacky things at work. I'm not grabbing these random, bites of discarded baked goods here and there. And she just came so far in her relationship with food and with her body image too, because fear of weight gain was massive for her.
Mhm.
And she was worried that, she had been bigger in the past and she had lost weight and she was really afraid of gaining it all back. And so it was kind of like a slow, moving forward with food, recognizing that she's not just going to gain all this weight back all at once, that her body actually does need fuel, that she feels better when she's, fueling herself properly, that, she did actually gain a bit of weight, but that she was so happy with how she felt And she recognized that, okay, I'm not like, gaining all of this weight. I'm okay with, what's happening. Not saying there weren't challenges and like going out was still tough for her sometimes or social situations. So we had to work on that. But over the course of, I think we worked together for 5 months, I believe. Yeah, I think it was 5 months. I mean, it was literally night and day from where she was when she started to where we left off. And I mean, the door's still open for her to kind of, do a session anytime, but she is in such a different place than she was when she started. I mean, she's like eating regularly now. She can identify when she's hungry and when she's full. She's
Mm.
not emotionally eating. She's not binging anymore. She's able to like go to social events and eat and not just binge because there's, food left out on a buffet type table or there's like a charcuterie board or something. There are a lot of really amazing pieces of freedom that she's gotten back. And like I said, I mean, she's not thinking about food all the time. That's not really a stressor in her life anymore. It's not something that takes up a lot of her headspace. She's thinking about, work, and she like bought a house with her partner during the time that we worked together, and like she's thinking about, what am I going to do with that, and where do I want to go in my career, and all these really amazing things. So yeah, she's the one who comes to mind because it was a really beautiful story of self-trust and just learning to love yourself and accept yourself and how that can really revolutionize and change the way that you are with food and with exercise. And another thing too was she like totally stopped going to the gym and she started going to like pole fitness and really loved that. And then eventually started going to the gym again, but in a really different way than she did before. And that was a really cool part of how her relationship with health evolved too.
Yeah, in a way she probably enjoyed this time, which is way better. My God,
Yeah.
that's crazy. That and so for some people hearing that, it might sound like 5 months, like, wow, I don't have that much time. But it's
Mm.
like you've probably been dealing with this for decades. And so for that to
Yeah.
change in 5 months is nothing. Like that's a really fast result. That's awesome. I'm curious because I don't know if people picked up on this, but you said that I think you gave a really big tip to a lot of people, which is if you're not eating breakfast, let's get some food in your belly in the morning and start having more
Mhm.
consistent meals.
Yeah.
I'm curious, is there 3 to 5 or just a handful of tips that you generally recommend across the board for people?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, first one, we want to establish regular eating throughout the day. I mean, ideally, and again, this is not necessarily for forever and ever, but if you're dealing with binge eating, if you're dealing with emotional overeating, we got to establish regularity throughout the day. And so I would typically recommend we don't want to really go any longer than like 3 or 4 hours without eating at least something. And so we want to start there, just establishing that regulation with food. Another piece of that is making sure that when you are eating, that you are including foods that are going to fill you up and keep you full, like making sure that you're including protein, making sure that you're including fiber, making sure that you're including healthy fats as well. Like that is not a diet culture thing. We need to reclaim the idea that you need to eat like protein and fiber and things like that from diet culture. Like that is not inherently a dieting behavior. That is a behavior that helps your body to feel full and satisfied for longer so that you're not experiencing like crazy ups and downs with your blood sugar. You're not having as many cravings. It helps your body regulate. It's important to enjoy what you're eating. And maybe that's another tip too. Like if you're just eating, chicken and rice and broccoli day in and day out, yeah, you're getting protein and fiber in there, but like it's boring and you're
Yeah.
not going to be satisfied. So making sure that you're satisfied is really important as well. Like you have to enjoy what you eat. Another one too, I think is actually this is a big one, and maybe this is number four or number three. I'm losing track, but
That
put
doesn't.
everything on a plate or in a bowl. Don't be eating from the bag. Don't be eating from the box. Again, that's not necessarily forever like that. I don't want to make that a food rule for you, but it is really helpful in just learning to be more mindful with how much you're eating and to help you have a more thoughtful start and stop to your meal or snack to have it in a bowl to be able to visualize, okay, here's how much I'm having, and to have that food away when you finish so that it's not so easy to be like, for your brain to just be like, ooh, like that was nice. I got dopamine from that. Let's keep this going, right?
Mhm.
If it's away, it's a lot easier to stop. And putting it in a bowl, putting it on a plate is not an inherently restrictive behavior. I know some people like that's kind of a way that they portion control themselves in dieting, but it's actually just a way for you to be more thoughtful about how much you're taking and give you a bit of a check-in point when you're done to say like, okay, I finished that. How full am I? Do I feel okay? And so maybe my next tip is to just take a pause after eating and like give yourself some time to chill. Give yourself some time to digest. Give your brain and your body a chance to communicate about how full you actually are and to do something after a meal. Like, don't just sit there and twiddle your thumbs. Like, clean up, go do some laundry, tidy something around the house, go play a video game, go, walk your dog, go play with your kids, like go do something else that is not food related so
Mhm.
that you can not only again give your brain and your body a chance to communicate, but that you can also just peel yourself away from wanting to extend um that meal or that snack.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I see how all of these just flow into each other. Like I saw you, you're like, I don't have 3 to 5 tips. And then you said one, and you're like, well, then when they do that, this is what we're going to do next. And then that's what we would do. And so now you've basically just outlined a nice set of habits or thought processes that people can go throughout their life with.
Hmm.
And my God, I think that's valuable. And so if you just shared that probably within 5 minutes, I'm sure you have a lot more to share. And I think you do that in your group coaching the most, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm curious about that. Like, can you tell me how your group coaching is set up and kind of who it's for?
Yeah. Yeah. So the group coaching that you are referring to is my membership. It's called the Empowered Eaters Collective, and it's a larger group coaching scenario. I do have small group coaching as well, but I really wanted to make this membership accessible for people. So it's at a lower cost. It's not as structured as my small group coaching. So you can, drop in. We have weekly calls every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. They're an hour long. And it's a really beautiful community that is formed because I think there really needs to be a space for people to talk about their challenges with food and with body image in a space that's not geared towards diet culture, that's not geared towards I'm following this diet and I'm following these rules and I'm so bad for doing this and that. Like people who genuinely want to have a better relationship with food and their body and exercise and to create more sustainability with it in a way that is mentally healthy as well. So that's really what we focus on. I mean, in our weekly calls, we'll talk, I try to check in with everyone who's there and just we talk about wins and challenges, and then often that will kind of lead into a conversation that we focus on that week. But, like yesterday in our call, we talked about like the munchies and cannabis and how you can have a good relationship with food while also participating in that and not going overboard and being mindful still and like maintaining regulation with food. So that was really cool. We talk about like dating and intimacy and body image and how that plays a role in, being with someone who you've been with for a long time or being with someone new. That's something that's been coming up quite a bit recently. We talk about like food habituation and fear foods and integrating those into your life in a way that allows them to be neutral and not so charged and like the really practical nitty gritty. Okay, like here's how we're going to do this. And what does that look like for you? And what does that look like for you? And what can we try? So yeah, it's a really awesome community. You can also, there's a platform associated with it. So you can ask questions in between, share what's going on with you, share any wins or challenges. And you also have access to my courses as well. So I have my body image reset course. I have an overeating course in there, and I have my food freedom forever course as well. So there's a ton of resources. I post new content in there every month as well. Yeah, and it's only $60 a month. So again, I've tried to make it accessible for people because I know life is a lot right now and it's expensive, and I want to be able to give as many people support as possible. So yeah, it's a great spot. And if you're resonating with the things that I'm chatting about, it would be a good fit for you for sure.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people that resonate because it's some of the stuff that we talk about on a daily basis inside of my coaching, but approached from a different angle, said a little bit differently, and I think you have a completely different level of experience than I do, which is incredible. So I'm sure you are going to have people that resonate. I hope they reach out. Guys, if you're listening, you probably should because this is something that's going to change your life, not just your body. And I think ultimately that's more important. So Britt, where can people just go spend some more time with you? If that sounds good, but they're kind of on the fence and they just want to see you drinking coffee out of your M&M cup and telling them stuff on Instagram, where can they do that?
Yeah, so you can go follow me on Instagram at the Food Freedom Life. I'm also on TikTok as well. My handle on TikTok is brittanycorey.rd. So I don't know why I have different handles for those, but I do. But yeah, that's where I am most of the time, Instagram or TikTok. Yeah, if you're on the fence, come hang out and see what I'm about. I also have my own podcast too. It's called the Food Freedom Life Podcast. So you can check that out as well. It's got a lot of great tidbits as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.